My ex-wife cheated on me and shamelessly favors her new family over ours, so our kids treat her like a ghost. Now she's crying that I turned them against her, and she and her lover are out for revenge. Funny how the guilty always play the victim. I'm 33 and have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I divorced their mom when I discovered she was cheating on me with a dad from our younger daughter's school group. Despite that betrayal, I agreed to shared custody because I wanted my kids to grow up with their mother in their lives. However, since the divorce, she's only been around when picking them up for visits. She often goes out with her stepchildren but rarely includes our kids, claiming those outings are spur of the moment and can't always include them. Eventually, I stopped pushing, but I've always thought it was unfair that she keeps her distance from our children's lives. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older daughter's computer, and she asked if we could give her old one to her cousin, my sister's daughter. My sister has been a huge support for my kids. She's always available to take them to their school events when I can't and often takes them out to the park or on trips when I'm busy. My ex, on the other hand, is rarely available for them. Anytime I ask her to help with an activity, she has an excuse: she's out of town or swamped with work. Ironically, though, whenever her stepkids need something, she's there. Once, she even argued with the stepkid's mother at a school event, saying she had the right to be there. When my ex found out I gave the computer to my niece, she got upset. She complained that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven the 2 months of child support she'd missed since her finances were tight with a new baby. She said that if I could give away a computer, I should have gifted it to either her kids or her stepkids, who shared just one computer among the 3 of them. I told her my finances were none of her business and that I owed nothing to her stepchildren. Then her husband jumped into the conversation, telling me I'm spoiling my daughter by giving her a new computer and that I'm being petty for letting my daughter bring it to their house, saying that I just wanted her to show it off in front of her step-siblings. I told him he had no right to speak to me that way or question my decisions. I said that I allow my kids to see their mother so they can grow up with her in their lives, not so he can interfere with how I parent. My ex was offended, but I told her this whole situation could have been avoided if her husband hadn't inserted himself where he doesn't belong. After that, things seemed to calm down until last week. I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly upset. She explained that she tried reading a bedtime story to our youngest. At home, she still likes to be read to before bed, usually by me, her sister, or my sister, and when none of us are around, she listens to audiobooks. Apparently, my ex wanted to make an effort to connect. So she offered to read to her, but our daughter turned her down and said she didn't need her for that because she could do it herself. My ex stayed to listen as she searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a mom on her tablet, and it hit her hard. The next day, my ex offered to take our older daughter to basketball practice, but she replied that she'd be going with her mom. She quickly corrected herself and said "and." That made my ex even angrier, and when I came to pick up the kids, she confronted me about it. I told her that if our kids feel like they don't have a mother, she is only herself to blame. She tried to shift the blame onto me, saying I was the one pushing her away from her role. I told her it's up to her to show up for her kids, not something I can do for her. I reminded her she was the one who broke our family, and she's chosen to be more involved with her stepkids than with her own children. I told her not to kid herself. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who she is as a mother. If she keeps this up, she can't expect much from them in the future. After that exchange, her dad called me. While he's always been polite to me, I felt the need to say that I would have appreciated the same concern from him when he supported his daughter's affair, knowing his grandchildren were losing their mother in the process. He hung up, and we haven't spoken since. My sister told me that I had every right to express how I feel, but she suggested that maybe this discussion shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me, saying that if I weren't so difficult, she'd spend more time with them. I told her that her duty as a mother doesn't depend on whether I'm easy or not, and she knows I've never prevented her from seeing the kids. The truth is, when she has to choose, she prefers outings with her stepkids over her own children, and that's something only she can change. Update, 11 days later. These past days have been a bit unusual. First, I want to thank all of you. I didn't expect to receive so much advice, and I never thought this app would be so useful. It's not very popular in my country. Now, back to the topic. My ex sent me messages saying she wanted to resolve things, stop arguing, and talk to me. I agreed. She came to my house, and we didn't beat around the bush. We went straight to the point. She asked me if I really thought she was a bad mother. I replied that, looking back now, I never would have chosen her to be the mother of my children. She said it wasn't easy for her, and I answered that it wasn't easy for me either because I take on both her role and mine. She told me she couldn't leave her stepchildren without a mother because she had already broken their family, and I replied that she had left her own children without a mother. She started crying and told me it was my fault, saying that when the infidelity happened, I refused to forgive her or go to couples therapy. To that, I unloaded many things that were going through my mind. I'll admit they weren't kind, but none of them were lies. She asked me if, given her current state, I didn't feel sorry for her, and I said no. She told me she didn't think I could be so cruel, and I replied that when I changed jobs, pulled my kids out of school 2 months before the end of the term, moved houses, and watched her disappoint our kids over and over again, any empathy I might have felt turned into apathy. She left after that. Her father called me and said he knew what I had told his daughter, that she hadn't stopped crying, and that he didn't understand how I could carry so much hatred to hurt his daughter like that. He said I should just get over it. I answered, with all due respect, that what I said wasn't out of hatred but out of truth. If your daughter is crying, it's because she's finally facing the consequences of her actions. Maybe instead of worrying about how she feels now, you should have taught her to take responsibility and treat people with respect. He said I didn't know what it was like to feel a father's love and see a child suffer, and I replied that I did understand because I have 2 children who cry over a living mother, 2 children who see their mom being a mother to other kids when she doesn't have time to be their mother. He said she was sorry, and I told him not to put words in her mouth and to stop calling me about anything related to his daughter. I hung up. I wanted to cry so badly, but I'm a damn father, and I don't have time for that. I want my kids to feel safe, loved, and strong enough not to need anyone, not even me, to be themselves. Last Thursday, I took my kids to their cousin's birthday party, hosted by my ex-brother-in-law. I still have a good relationship with him. He was the one who told me about the infidelity and that his father was already encouraging it. My ex showed up alone and irritated. My kids kept their distance from her. They kissed her hand but then ignored her completely. My ex-father-in-law told the kids they should show more respect to their mother, and my eldest replied that she doesn't show respect for me since she and her partner talk badly about me. I scolded my daughter, not for what she said, but for how she addressed her grandfather. I told her it was wrong to eavesdrop on private conversations and repeat them. Then I asked her to gather her things because we were leaving. My ex-father-in-law asked me not to leave, saying the kids were having fun and we could resolve this as adults. He asked my ex what she had said, and she claimed not to remember. I told him I didn't care, and he said we should be good parents. I replied that to be good parents, you need to be good people first. My ex was getting agitated. My ex-father-in-law asked why we couldn't have a civilized co-parenting relationship. I told him everything I've mentioned here, about her free will to see the kids and how the second custody agreement isn't working since she only sees them some weekends. My ex didn't want to discuss it and said she had too many kids at home. My ex-father-in-law told her the only kids who should feel comfortable are hers, and the comfort of the others should be provided by their biological mother. My ex wanted to end the conversation because her father was scolding her for being a careless mother. She also said it was my fault. I asked her to clarify how it was my fault. You can see the kids whenever you want, what more do you want? She started yelling, saying I was only being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than her and had fewer kids to feed. I told her I wouldn't continue the conversation and that I'd show her what being uncivilized looks like by filing for the overdue child support payments. Her father asked what I meant by overdue payments. I explained that she was 3 months behind. He was furious, slapped her, and demanded to know what she had done with the money for her children. She answered, I couldn't let stepdaughter's name miss out on attending the same school as my daughter. I didn't want her to feel inferior. My ex-father-in-law said he couldn't believe it, and they started arguing. Regardless, I left. For context, my youngest daughter attends a private school, and my ex pays for her stepdaughter to attend the same school. Yesterday, my ex-father-in-law came over and said he would pay the overdue fees. He brought the money in cash. I knew my ex would be furious. Here's some context. My ex-father-in-law doesn't work, doesn't own anything himself, and lives with my ex-brother-in-law. However, he does have significant savings from his inheritance. If he pays the tuition, my ex knows there won't be much left for her when he passes, even though he's still healthy. She's been asking him for years to invest some of that money in her business ideas, but he's always refused. My ex's retaliation was not picking up the kids this weekend. Yesterday, my ex's brother-in-law called me. He doesn't know all the details yet, but apparently, my ex's 15-year-old stepdaughter punched her in the mouth. He said he'll let me know exactly what happened when he finds out. And before anyone asks, the new custody agreement will likely take a year to finalize. The court says the overdue payments are the priority, and the rest can wait. We have more urgent cases. Edit, a promise is a promise. As I mentioned earlier, my ex's stepdaughter had an altercation with her because my ex refused to let her go out. Now I have more details. My ex's stepdaughter had plans to go bowling with some friends. Her biological mother had already given her permission and money for the outing. However, when she told her father, he said she couldn't go because they needed her to stay home and watch her younger siblings. My ex and her husband had planned an outing and needed someone to stay with the kids. This led to an argument. The girl raised her voice to her father, and my ex stepped in to demand that she respect him. The girl replied that he wasn't her mother. Trying to maintain authority, my ex told her that as long as she lived under his roof, she had to follow his rules. The girl ignored him and turned away. My ex followed her and touched her shoulder to get her attention. At that moment, the girl turned around, punched her, and shouted that she wasn't her mother and could never compare to her. The father scolded her for her behavior, but the girl, still angry, shouted back that she hated him. This version was shared by my ex and her husband with my ex-father-in-law. My brother-in-law later related to me. They went to see my ex-father-in-law to try to gain his sympathy and convince him to take care of the kids, the 2 stepdaughters and the baby, so they could go out. However, my ex-father-in-law told them he would not take care of the children. When I spoke to my ex, she mentioned she was dealing with family issues and said that the girl's biological mother was turning her against her. She didn't give me many details and omitted most of what my brother-in-law had shared. She simply informed me that, due to the situation, she wouldn't be able to pick up our children this weekend. The 15-year-old girl is now staying with her biological mother. As for what I mentioned earlier, my ex was 2 months behind on child support, and that same week, she was supposed to make another payment. She didn't, leaving her 3 months behind. In the end, her father was the one who covered the overdue amount. Regarding the child who attends the same school as my daughter, it's not the 15-year-old involved in the altercation. It's her younger stepsister, who is 8 years old, the same age as my daughter. I decided to enroll my daughter in that school when the affair became public. At the time, I was working as a kindergarten teacher at the same school, and the girl had been one of my students. We all knew each other, and to protect my children from rumors, I transferred them to a private school. This happened 2 months before the school year ended. Thanks to the circumstances and the support of some kind people, we managed to get them admitted. When the infidelity occurred, I was an elementary school teacher pursuing a master's degree. Now, I am a secondary school teacher working in a government institution. My salary is 4 times higher than it was before the divorce. I worked at a public school because I wanted to be close to my children in case something happened. As I mentioned before, my daughter is still in a private school, but her mother pays the tuition so that her stepdaughter can attend as well. Make sure to like and subscribe.